Archaeology is a field of study that offers no promises. The biggest object you uncover might reveal almost nothing about ancient life. On the flip side, the tiniest piece could speak volumes about the people who once made it. Archaeologists step into the unknown every time they begin a dig, but they do it knowing that remarkable discoveries are always out there, waiting. All it takes is sharp eyes and a bit of luck. These are just 15 of those amazing, unforgettable finds. Number 15. The megalithic temple of Archaeological. Back in 1999, retired real estate investor Hubert Zeitlin claimed he had stumbled upon a massive megalithic temple off the coast of St. Julian Sea, Malta. The site became known as Archaeological, but this wasn't your everyday discovery. Zeitlin believed he had found something ancient and monumental, only for his claim to be largely dismissed. Critics argued it was just a natural rock formation. He didn't help his case by openly following Zakaria Sitchin, a controversial figure linked with ancient astronaut theories and the fictional planet Nibiru. Zeitlin even said the goddess Astarte had spiritually guided him to the site, which made academics even more skeptical. Though some divers returned with him to the area, the structure was never located again. No official excavation has ever taken place, and without solid evidence, the site remains a topic of speculation. While the scientific community may have written it off, the question still lingers: was it myth or something real waiting to be rediscovered? Number 14. Ancient cave art. Well, just look at these artistic drawings. The rock shelters at Las Gil in Somaliland contain some of the most visually striking and beautiful prehistoric art ever found in Africa. Painted over 5,000 years ago, these vivid murals have survived the centuries thanks to the cave's stable interior environment. When archaeologists first studied them in the early 2000s, they were stunned not just by the vibrant reds, whites, and yellows, but by the sheer quality of the detail. These paintings show pastoral scenes, people, and animals, all captured with a clarity that defied their age. Locals, however, had known about them for generations. In fact, many warned outsiders not to enter, believing the art to be cursed or even painted in blood. While the French team that documented the site dismissed those beliefs, they had to admit the preservation was remarkable. What's more mysterious is that we know almost nothing about the people who created this open-air gallery. Their story faded, but their brushstrokes stayed, still after centuries. Number 13. Wooden Wagon of Armenia. Well, wood doesn't usually survive the centuries, but sometimes the earth decides to preserve the impossible. On the banks of Lake Sevan, near Lechin village in Armenia, archaeologists made an astonishing find in 2017, a nearly complete wooden wagon. Almost 4,000 years old, it's one of the oldest surviving wagons on record, and by far one of the best preserved. Alongside it, researchers uncovered several other 4- and 2-wheeled wagons, though none matched this one's condition. Crafted entirely from oak, the wheels still bore traces of fabric that once lined their inner surfaces. What caught experts off guard, however, was the wagon's size. Some were unusually small, prompting speculation that they might not have been pulled by animals at all, but by people. That would have been an exhausting task, no doubt. But this wasn't just a vehicle, it was a relic of movement, transport, and everyday life thousands of years ago. And somehow, through time, water, and weather, it held together long enough to tell its story. Number 2. Ancient music. Well, long before Mozart, before Gregorian chants, even before written language as we know it, someone in Ugarit, Syria, carved music into clay. That music, known as the Hurrian hymn to Nikkel, is the oldest known written song in existence. Found in the ruins of Ugarit's royal palace in the 1950s, these tablets date back around 3,400 years. Most were fragmentary, but one hymn remained mostly intact, complete with musical notation and tuning instructions for a lyre. The lyrics, written in the barely deciphered Hurrian language, seem to be a devotional song for Nikkel, goddess of orchards and wife of the moon god. Although the notation system differs from anything modern, composers have tried to recreate how it might have sounded. No one can say if they've gotten it right, but that hasn't stopped musicians from breathing life into this ancient melody. The idea that someone once sang these notes in reverence, thousands of years ago, gives this song a haunting sense of continuity across time. So, music is not a new thing. Number 11. Ketekan Bukit inscription. In November 1920, a Dutch tourist named C.J. Battenberg made an unexpected discovery along the Tatang River in South Sumatra, Indonesia. Carved into stone, he found what's now recognized as the oldest known specimen of the Old Malay language, the Ketekan Bukit inscription. Remarkably, the inscription includes a date, May 1st, 683 CE. Although the English translation is clumsy and fragmented, we still get a glimpse of its historical significance. It mentions a figure named Sri Baginda, who appears to have led military expeditions, possibly involving 20,000 troops. Later parts describe him as being truly merry and agile during a countryside journey, odd details, but possibly ritual or ceremonial references. Unfortunately, the rest of the inscription becomes nearly impossible to decipher. Still, this brief passage offers an invaluable peek into the language, politics, and priorities of ancient Sumatra. It may not feel like modern history, but its voice echoes from over 1,300 years ago, and that alone gives it weight. Number 10. Oldest jewelry. In June 2021, archaeologists working inside the Cave of Pigeons in Tafaralt, Morocco, uncovered something unexpectedly elegant: dozens of tiny perforated seashell beads, thought to be around 82,000 years old. These weren't just random finds, they were deliberately shaped and likely strung together as necklaces or stitched into clothing. That pushes back the timeline for symbolic behavior among humans, particularly the desire to adorn oneself, by tens of thousands of years. Before this, the earliest known jewelry had been dated to about 40,000 years ago in Europe. The Moroccan beads not only double that estimate, but challenge long-held assumptions about where human creativity and symbolic thought first emerged. Tools and animal remains were also found nearby, suggesting this wasn't just a campsite, it might have been a cultural or ritual space. While we can't know what these beads meant to the people who wore them, one thing is clear: they cared enough to craft beauty in a world that didn't require it. Number 9. The Vale de Pedra Furada tool. At the Vale de Pedra Furada site in Brazil, archaeologists have been digging since 2011, but in May 2021, they pulled something truly unexpected from the soil: a single stone tool that's now causing major ripples in what we thought we knew about South America's early human history. It's a flat, disc-shaped object with a serrated edge, clearly shaped by human hands. The shock? It's around 24,000 years old. That's nearly 10,000 years earlier than the timeline most experts have used to mark the arrival of the first people on the continent. The tool likely served to slice plant fibers or animal hides, and it wasn't alone. More than 2,000 other stone objects have since been found in the area. Some researchers are still hesitant, suggesting the piece might not be man-made, but that theory's looking less likely by the day. If this tool really is what it appears to be, then the earliest chapters of South American human history just got a serious rewrite. Number 8. Nahal Mishmar Hoard. In 1961, Israeli archaeologist Pessa Bar Adan stepped into a cave near the Dead Sea and walked straight into prehistory. Hidden behind a rock and wrapped in straw was a stash of over 400 ancient artifacts, now known as the Nahal Mishmar Hoard. The objects date back nearly 6,000 years, sitting right at the edge of the Neolithic and Copper Age. Tools, scepters, mysterious symbols, each item carefully shaped and stored. But among them, one artifact stood apart: a heavy ring-shaped crown decorated with vultures and strange arched motifs. It's the oldest known crown ever found. No other artifact like it has been uncovered anywhere in the region or beyond. And to this day, nobody knows who wore it or why it was hidden away so deliberately. Many of the items can't even be clearly identified. Some scholars wonder if they belong to a long-forgotten culture whose traces have otherwise vanished. One thing is clear: whoever hid this hoard wanted it to stay hidden for a very long time. Number 7. Maijishan Grottos. Carving into soft ground is hard enough, but carving nearly 200 caves into the sheer face of a mountain, that's what the creators of the Maijishan Grottos somehow managed over 1,500 years ago in Tianshui, China. This isn't just one temple, it's a vast network of caves connected by stairways and walkways etched straight into sandstone. The cliffs look almost porous from afar, but up close you'll find over 7,000 Buddhist sculptures and carvings nestled into these sacred spaces. Strangely, some of the materials used to create the interior statues weren't even from the mountain itself. That means whoever did this had to haul massive stone pieces up the side of a vertical cliff without modern tools or safety. No clear record explains how they achieved this feat, and even less is known about what motivated them to do it this way. The hill stands like a frozen moment in devotion, effort, and craftsmanship, forever raising more questions than answers. Number 6. Gadara Aqueduct. Running over 100 miles underground, the Gadara Aqueduct, also known as Konat Furon, is a staggering feat of ancient engineering. Construction began around 90 CE with a clear goal: deliver water to the cities of the Roman Decapolis, which now straddle the modern borders of Syria and Jordan. And deliver it did. The structure turned a dry region into one flush with water, where elites even had access to private bathing pools. What makes the aqueduct exceptional isn't just its scale, it's how they pulled it off. Workers used nothing more than hand tools to carve through miles of rock, guided by sloping ventilation shafts that also brought in air. When completed, the aqueduct had displaced more than 2 million cubic feet of limestone. It took over a century to finish, and the result transformed entire cities. Long hidden underground, it's easy to overlook what the Romans built, but when you see the precision and planning that went into it, it becomes impossible to ignore. Number 5. Vampire Grave. Well, now, this is pretty scary. In September 2022, archaeologists working near Bydgoszcz, Poland, unearthed a grave that immediately caught attention, and not for typical reasons. Inside was the skeleton of a woman, buried with a sickle laid tightly across her neck. This wasn't symbolic, it was a measure used in the 18th century to stop suspected vampires from rising after death. Locals feared that the blade would decapitate the corpse if it tried to escape the grave. What made this woman the subject of such superstition? Her protruding teeth might have marked her as different enough to draw suspicion in a time when fear and folklore often shaped reality. Oddly, she was also buried wearing a silk cap, suggesting she held a relatively high status in her community. That contrast between respect and fear makes her burial all the more unsettling. Whether viewed as a vampire, a witch, or simply a misunderstood figure, her grave remains a haunting glimpse into how deeply superstition shaped human behavior. Number 4. Standing Stones of Filitosa. Tucked into the Corsican landscape lies Filitosa, one of the strangest Neolithic sites known to archaeologists. What makes it so unusual? The standing stones. Known as menhirs, these towering figures, some reaching 8 feet, weren't just random chunks of granite. Some were carved into humanoid shapes, clad in what looks like armor, even holding weapons. Others were unmistakably designed as phallic symbols. Historians are still unsure whether their symbolism was intentional or coincidental, but fertility rituals have often been linked to similar monuments across cultures. The settlement dates back over 5,000 years, though these menhirs are believed to be closer to 3,500 years old. Despite decades of study, no one knows who built them or why. The meanings behind their design remain locked away, just like the identity of the people who once stood among them. Whether sacred symbols or social markers, these stones are a reminder of a civilization whose thoughts we can only guess at. What do you think about it? Number 3. Roman coins. In November 2013, Lawrence Egerton, an amateur metal detectorist, walked into a field near Seaton Down in Devon, England, hoping for a lucky strike. What he unearthed by the time he headed home changed his life and local history. He had found one of the largest hoards of Roman coins ever discovered in Britain. In total, the stash contained 22,888 coins, all minted between 260 and 348 CE. Most of them were made from copper alloy and date back to the reigns of Emperor Constantine I and his successors, including Constantius II. A brief debate followed over who should keep them, but eventually, the coins were handed over to the Royal Albert Memorial Museum in Exeter. Lawrence was awarded a fair finder's fee, and the collection was officially named the Seaton Down Hoard. It's a reminder that the Roman Empire left its mark far and wide, and sometimes, that mark just happens to be buried beneath a quiet field in rural England. Number 2. Stone Age Crayon. Creativity knows no bounds. A reddish-brown pigment stick, unearthed decades ago at Star Car in Yorkshire, quietly sat in storage until a closer look in 2018 revealed its true nature. It's an ochre crayon, likely used for artistic or ritual marking nearly 10,000 years ago. Archaeologist Andy Needham confirmed the object's pointed shape and worn surface made it ideal for drawing or coloring, possibly onto animal hides or natural surfaces. Composed of ochre clay, the crayon carries cultural weight. Red ochre was deeply symbolic across ancient Europe and often linked with ceremony, art, and even death rituals. Some communities used it to decorate the bones of their deceased, though the reasons remain unclear. Star Car itself is known for prehistoric artistry, and the presence of this crayon reinforces the idea that creative expression has long been woven into human identity. It wasn't a child's toy or an idle object. It was a tool, possibly sacred, that added color to both physical objects and cultural meaning in the ancient world. Number 1. Gilded bronze shoes. In 2014, archaeologists excavating a tomb in Naju, South Korea, uncovered a remarkable pair of gilded bronze shoes. The burial site dated to the 7th century and belonged to the Baekje kingdom. Though the identity of the tomb's occupant remains unknown, the footwear left no doubt they were someone of immense status. Decorated with images of dragons, lotus flowers, and goblins, the shoes were clearly ceremonial. With their ornate finish and impractical design, it's unlikely they were ever meant to be worn in life. Instead, they may have been created specifically for the burial. Found alongside the shoes were earrings, ceramics, arrowheads, stone pillows, and even parts of a harness, further evidence of the person's elevated rank. No inscription was discovered to identify the individual, but the craftsmanship speaks volumes. These shoes weren't just a show of wealth, they reflected the spiritual and artistic values of Baekje elite society. They now stand as one of the finest surviving examples of royal funerary fashion in ancient Korea. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.